We started this project 2 years ago, Rivscape. This was very much an enrichment project, so it was taking the children to the river, immersing them in the environment, and getting their thoughts and feelings and stories about their connection to the river. So it wasn't just about their learning about how a river system works. It was much more than that. It was about what it feels like to live next to a river, talking about their hobbies, talking about memories, talking about objects that link them to the river. And we walked the river, talked about these stories, these ideas, and then we created mini riverscapes. So in small vivariums, we got the children to recreate the river environment. So they were collecting natural materials, mud, leaves, twigs, trees, and they created riverbanks. They added water to create the river. And then on the outside of the vivariums, they were writing thoughts, feelings, poems about their emotional connection to that river. So then the next year we focused on the history side of the curriculum. So we were learning about the Tudors. So of course we've got Cotehill House, we've got Buckland Abbey. So we took the children to Buckland. We talked to them about Henry VIII and his link and Drake. We dressed up in Tudor costumes. We talked about the orchards, talked about the flowers, talked about the market gardening side of life in the Tamar Valley, and that connection to the river and to the sea. And today has been very much a celebration of all of that. So the children today have been building their own coracles. So we've talked about that ancient art of building a very simple boat to transport from one side of a river to the next, and the children have actually been making their very own coracles. So they've been learning how to weave using willow and rush. They've created their own rafts. And they've, again, that emotional connection to the river has always run throughout this project. So children have talked about wishes for the river, and they've created sails for their rafts, and they have released their rafts out into this beautiful environment.
I think you've been engaging the children in a way that children should be engaged in schools for proper learning experiences, really. We watched a film first. We started off with the film of the old men taking their curraghs down to the water and somebody making a very quick, speeded up process of making an actual curragh. Before we got down here, we made the sails, and they had all written their wishes on them. Every single thing was biodegradable. Yep, flour and water glue, a bit of salt in, the paper was sort of special acid-free paper. Willow was cut from my garden in Cornwall. So we came down, and I didn't quite know how it was going to all work out, but you have to sort of see what their capabilities are and what they prefer to do, really, as we go along. There was one boy, he was making a catamaran rather than a curragh or a coracle, and he was totally involved in it and got that going very well. The whole learning experience, you're showing them that there are different ways to learn things.
I feel like we've been helping the river in ways that we can connect to it and ways that we can understand it a bit more. The amount of knowledge that I've learnt about the river and about all of these projects and things, and then about how to get an apple out of a bucket from apple bobbing, and I learnt a lot about the culture of our country and of our rivers and stuff, and I think that was really interesting. Overall, it was amazing. I loved the experience of doing this project, and I loved hanging out with my friends doing it. I think what would have been better is if we had a bit more free, we can just go do stuff, just get on. I mean, sometimes, yes, we were able to just get on with it, but sometimes they were always people looking over us, checking we were doing a good job, and sometimes I think that it would be better if we could learn from our mistakes and do it on ourselves.
I learned how to make a raft. and I never knew about Francis Drake. I feel quite proud of myself in learning stuff.
I did like the up at the orchard when we made the glass boxes, and then we made like picture kind of thing inside it. I guess it's given me more of a creative mind.
How do you teach creativity? You don't, do you? You don't teach creativity, but what you have to do is give opportunities for children to be immersed in creativity. What you can do is you can nurture it and you can encourage it, and you can give everybody the opportunity to be creative.
It's been really good to see the kids engaged in all aspects of the river, the history of the river. I mean, it's such a historic place. I wanted to sort of give the kids kind of something a bit more visual to understand what an excellent river can look like and how so far in the distance a poor river can be. And, you know, so I showed them the results of their test, which was at the end of a dry spell. Great results. That dry spell, you know, equates to, you know, going back all that time as far back as beyond their parents, beyond their grandparents, and possibly back to when their great-grandparents were alive. That the dry weather has given us a glimpse of what the river can be.
The children are very interested in the pollution aspect of rivers and keeping rivers safe and healthy, so they can carry on that connection, that story, that hobby with their river.
I think getting the kids closer to the river somehow that's safe would be more beneficial, definitely.
It's that place-based education that we talk about that is what has the most impact on children. So I can sit in my classroom all day long and teach them about a meander of a river, or I can talk about Henry VIII. But if you actually bring children into an environment where history happened, where boats were sailed down rivers, where boxes were filled with apples or whatever it is they were transporting at the time, and you immerse those children in that environment, it becomes real, and that will stay with them. So they won't remember the geography lesson and I taught them about meanders, but I think they will absolutely remember so much more because of being next to that river. And actually, for children that aren't as academic, when you're immersing them in an environment and you're asking them to connect to an environment and learn through that environment, it doesn't matter what their handwriting's like, it doesn't matter how good they are at English. It makes all children feel like they can achieve. All children, they're going to learn in their own way, and they're going to bring something to the project that's very different, and they're going to take something away from the project which is very different. And we've all been discovering, haven't we? And we've all been coming up with ideas as we go along. Nobody had a set idea at the beginning, and I think that's what's made it more powerful and more organic, because if you had a set idea and you stuck to it, you wouldn't have done half of the things we've done. And that's the success of it, is that you've allowed children to experiment, you've allowed them to try ideas out, you've again given them lots of opportunity to be outside, which is massively important. Genuinely, and I'm not just saying this, I don't think there's anything we could have done better.